Hi, I'm Michael Senoff, founder and CEO of HardToFindSeminars.com. For the last 5 years, I've interviewed the world's best business and marketing minds. Now my challenge is to build the world's largest free resource for online, downloadable audio business interviews. I've learned a lot in the last 5 years, and today I'm going to show you the skills you need to survive. Hi, it's Michael Senoff with HardToFindSeminars.com. If you want to learn how to make $2,000 to $15,000 per transaction buying and selling real estate, there's no better recording to listen to than these next 3 recordings. This is an interview I did with a UK real estate investor. In these recordings, I extract as much detail as I can about his proprietary system for locating motivated sellers. Listen in on all 3 recordings as he describes in detail how he uses direct mail principles to find, locate, buy, and most importantly, profit on amazing real estate deals.
Hello.
Hi, Deep. It's Mike Senoff here.
Hey, Mike. You all right?
How are you doing?
Yeah, very good.
We've talked back and forth and emailed back and forth over the last couple of years, but I've never taken the time to really find out, how did you get your whole start in real estate? Where did this all first start? You were telling me at one time you were working for like £4 an hour. What's the whole story with that?
Well, basically what happened was I finished college.
What did you study? What did you major in?
I basically majored in finance. Since I was about 11 years old, my dream was always to retire before I was 25, and I was very mathematically minded, and I just thought, well, I love math, and I've always wanted to make lots of money really quickly, so what I'll do is I'll become a stockbroker. And that was really my goal throughout half my working life. Through all my study and through college, it was all about becoming a stockbroker. And then what really happened was, when I graduated, it was during the tech crash. Do you remember the tech crash?
Yeah, the .com?
Yep, so that all just crashed. So what happened was, all the big investment banks that I wanted to apply for just didn't want anybody. I think it's more a case of just didn't want me.
This money-making enthusiasm, were you influenced by your parents?
Kind of. My father's a businessman, but he sort of does business on a different level to me. He started from nothing and built his business up.
What kind of business did he have?
He was in textiles. He used to manufacture clothes. And his philosophy was always hard work. Don't bother looking at systems or efficiency. Just work really, really hard, put the time in, and eventually you'll make it, which is fine. But the thing with me was I was always looking to become more efficient, to systemize. So whenever I would work with my father since I was age of about 9, and I'd drive him mad because he'd give me something to do, and then I'd spend 20 minutes trying to work out a way of doing it quicker. And he'd get really peed off because he'd say, just get on with it. And I'd say, no, I'm sure I can think of something quicker. And that was the difference between me and him. And basically, yeah, I'd left college, couldn't get a job I wanted, and I just thought, well, I'm not going to get something below what I wanted, because I know if I do just get any normal job to tide me over, I'd end up becoming comfortable, and then once I become comfortable, I wouldn't have that drive that I've got now. So I thought, what can I do that would really give me a lot of drive, would make me really, really push to be something better? And I thought, what's the worst possible job that I can find? And the worst possible job that I could find was working nights, pushing chips. I think you call them chips.
Potato chips.
Potato chips, that's it.
So you're working in a potato chip factory?
That was it, yeah.
Were you pushing the raw chips?
No, when they were finished, they were packaged in packs. What would happen was, big retailers would say, we want 10 boxes of X and 20 boxes of Y. And I would pick them, put them on a big cart, wheel them round, and then package them up and put them in the back of the truck.
How long did you do that for?
I did that for about 5 months.
And how do you like it?
To be honest, I did it because I wanted to push myself, and when I got there, it was actually quite a good fun, because I'm quite a positively minded person. So when I got there, I thought, well, I'll make the most of it, and it was pretty good. So what I'd do was I'd work 12-hour nights, come home, sleep for 4 or 5 hours, and then go out looking for a real estate deal.
You said, were you introduced to real estate investing while you were working at that job?
I got into real estate before I got the job because I was looking for options, because I had some money set aside for my student loans, so I had a bit of time to think over what to do next. And I was looking at opportunities and what kind of things I could get into, and I thought real estate is the way to go. Simply because from the business people I knew, the most successful ones were all involved in real estate in some way or another, whether it was developing or buying. They were all involved somehow, so I thought, well, I've got to get into that business. And then I had to get the job because I ran out of money, and that's how I ended up there.
How did you know what real estate material to study? Were there any gurus that you had heard about? You were following someone that would lead you to the path that's brought you to your success?
That's a good point. Basically, I didn't have anybody in particular I was following. I was just very much like, I think most people who start in real estate, I didn't have a clue who to look at or who to follow or anything. Because when you're starting out in any business, there's just so much information out there. You never know which particular way to go. So it's more a case of just soaking in everything that I could possibly get my hands on. Even while I was working, all my lunch breaks and all my breaks were just spent reading books. The classics ones, No Money Down by Robert Allen, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Russ Whitney, the classic real estate books, and I was just reading through those and just trying to get an idea of where I wanted to go, really. When I had an idea of what I needed to do, I then about talking to real estate agents, I went to visit auctions, and I started to build up my contact base.
After reading through some of those books, what had you decided was going to be your niche? Were you going to deal in apartments? apartments, single-family housing, apartment buildings? What niche did you decide, and why did you go towards that direction?
Well, my problem at the time was I needed an income. So if I was going to buy properties, I needed to make sure there was enough of a margin in there to leave an income for myself. So the only way you could do that where I live is to buy sort of single-family homes below £100,000, because the rent more than covers the mortgage, so that you have money left over that you can then go and live off. Whereas if you buy properties in sort of better areas and pay more money, they will usually go up in value faster, but there isn't much of a margin left in the income. So that's why I went for the lower end.
So because of your financial situation, you needed to start small with something that you can handle.
Exactly. I was just very fortunate that I started in the right place, because you can't really go too wrong. If you buy a house for £70,000, £80,000, you can't really go that far wrong. Whereas if you're buying land or houses for £500,000, a mistake can cost you £100,000, £200,000. So I thought, well, I'll go for the volume option as opposed to the other way around. So I went just started buying lots of houses. But really, that was my aim. And the way I did it was I started off sort of talking to real estate agents, and I visited auctions and things like that. And what I found, as I'm sure a lot of people have found, is it's very hard to break in there, because what you'll find is you go and see a real estate agent and you're just a young, fresh guy or girl just starting out, and you've got no track record. And if that real estate agent comes across a great deal, he or she can either come to you, who's got no proven track record, just starting out, or he or she can go to somebody who's done 10, 20 deals with him before. So
put it in perspective. Why would you be talking to a real estate agent, and what was your strategy, and what was your outcome that you were hoping to get by talking and networking with real estate agents?
Well, if I go back a little bit, what I basically discovered in terms of the real estate game is the real estate game is not about finding properties as such. It's about finding people in certain situations. And I really discovered that when I just talked to people, and I met a few people. I met Vanish Patel through you. He's a bit of a real estate guy. I met Neil. Do you know Neil Phillips? Really sharp UK real estate guys. And I learned that the key to doing well in real estate was to look for people who were desperate to sell. People who had got themselves into debt problems, going through divorce, maybe approaching bankruptcy, all sorts of problems that people go through in life, where they might need to liquidate their asset quickly. Because the problem with real estate, as I'm sure you're aware, it's very hard to liquidate it quickly. It's difficult, because the general route is you put it on with a real estate agent. Even if you put it through an auction, it will still take a little while to sell. So I realized if I could market for people who were looking for a quick sale, I could do quite well. So that's the kind of proposition I took to real estate agents. I said, look, if you have anybody who needs to get rid of their property quickly, give me a call. I can have a look at the deal and possibly purchase it quickly. But because the track record wasn't there, and then when deals like that came along, they just passed them on to people they already knew had money. I don't blame them for that. I don't blame them for doing that at all, because if I was in their position, I'd do exactly the same thing.
So most of the agents already knew of contacts who were interested in flipping houses or doing these deals.
And then some of them would get backhanders or, whatever from other people, and I'm not really into that. So for me, it's a case of how can I cut them out? How can I cut out the middleman? Because that's really what they are.
Right, how can you go around the agent?
Exactly. Or how can I become one of them? How can I put myself in their position? So instead of people going to them with houses to sell quickly, how do I get them to come to me? And that was my realization. And that's why I thought, okay, why didn't I start advertising? And that's how I got into marketing. And that's how I found you, and that's how I went from there, really.
So here in the U.S., what you're talking about is finding people in desperate situations, and I believe here in the U.S. it's called the foreclosure market. Is that correct?
They're generally known as motivated sellers, which means basically they're motivated to sell. Foreclosures are more sort of repossessions. We call them repossessions here. And a foreclosure is basically where a bank has turned around and said, look, you're not keeping up with your payments on the loan, or we're going to foreclose. And that's pretty much what a foreclosure is. But in terms of motivated sellers, foreclosure is one of them. You could have people who are getting divorced. That's another type of motivated seller. You could have somebody who has business problems. They need to get money out there. But there are so many different reasons. There could be a death in the family. They need to liquidate the asset quickly. Lots of different situations where people need to sell quickly, and that's really what I went out looking for.
Bringing you back, you had met Vanish Patel and Neil Phillips, and then you had found out about Gary Halbert and all these marketing gurus. Were these all new to you at that time?
Absolutely. Gary Halbert, Dan Kennedy, Jay Abraham, then I started into Claude Hopkins, John Capel, when I started writing my own copy.
How did these teachers influence you?
What they really taught me was that I could do it.
Hi, it's Michael Senoff with HardToFindSeminars.com. Thanks for watching this video. Many of my interviews last 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, sometimes even up to 2.5 hours long. They're actual mini seminars, and you've just listened to a short sample of just one of over 117 hours of exciting, hard-hitting, mind-blowing interviews on how to make money in direct mail, advertising, copywriting. I assure you, there is not a resource anywhere anywhere on the internet or on the planet that comes close to the free information I provide at hardtofindseminars.com. So go right now to hardtofindseminars.com and you'll have free access to 117 hours of audio interviews with typed word-for-word downloadable transcripts and downloadable MP3 files. Please browse some more of the videos or go right directly to hardtofindseminars.com. Thanks for watching.